Well, look, so thanks for making it to the last session of the day. And I hope you've had a really productive show. I hope it's got everything you want it to do and more, and that you continue having conversations. But I'm really, really delighted that you've taken the time to do this specific session. I'll briefly sort of set things up that throughout the day we've been looking to try and put together some of the basics of organising an event. That'll all be available at the end of the day, and we'll send that to you guys on a PDF, and hopefully that will give you some inspiration, some ideas and things like that. I guess one of the reasons for putting this one on towards the end is because we think it's just a really, really important subject. And I'm delighted that Orla's here to do it as well, because for me, accessibility goes beyond just being able to get in. It's about hidden disabilities. It's about opening the doors to more people. It's about events being for people that don't just like events. There's people that don't love events that deserve to have our event content. And that's what I think this is all about. So I've known Orla for a while now. She's really good at what she does. She's really challenging in what she does as well. So she's going to give you a really good conversation. But because we're lovely people in CHS, before she's even done anything, can we give her a round of applause? And then I'll do some Q&As afterwards. Thanks, Orla.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Alistair. I've toned it down from the last couple we've done. We were in Barcelona talking about accessibility, and Alistair said, "You can have a rant," and I smiled, and he had no idea, did you? But we had fun. Today I'm not going to rant. Today is about learning. It's about learning about events, learning how to run events, what works at events. And I think it's really important to include accessibility in this. If I asked all of you, do you want people to feel included and engaged and feeling part of your events, to come away feeling like they belonged, that they'd been part of something? You'd all say yes, right? Well, without accessibility, there is quite a large portion of people who are walking away not having that feeling. So it's really simple. So who am I? My name is Orla Pearson. I'm a director and founder of MyClearText and a company called Accessloop. I worked at the BBC for 15 years developing live captioning for broadcast. I take no responsibility for the captions on BBC right now. It's nothing to do with me or my work. But when I was there, they were amazing. I've also worked with Channel 4 and Sky. I left the BBC after 15 years, wanted new things, worked as a freelancer in the events field, and was really shocked that there was no real professional provision for live captioning and other sorts of accessibility, and really wanted to bring that kind of professionalism that I'd experienced at the BBC. They're a fantastic organisation. You get taught everything. So I wanted to bring that into the events world. I wanted to help clients who were, what is this? Someone's asked for this. What do I do? I'm really worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. I really just wanted to help those people, help them to understand what they're doing is really important, who are the audiences, how it was going to have an impact. I also wanted to look after the end user, making sure they got quality live captioning and other sorts of accessibility. It wasn't just cheap and thrown in at the end. And I also wanted to look after the skilled, highly skilled people who provide these services. So the best live captions are captions done by humans. They write real time on a little machine at 99.5% accuracy all the time, at about 250, up to 250 words a minute. I can do that. I run companies now and talk to people about this, but that's what we do as a company. I've also developed software that allows you to add live captioning and sign language into virtual events or hybrid events. So because that was another barrier I saw, and no one was doing anything about it, so I thought, I'll do it. Don't do it. That's my advice. Do not become a software developer. I love to talk about things. Alistair and I work together. I speak at things like Confex. We have main stage slots next year for accessibility. I have lobbied for years. We now have main stage slots, which is great. Hope to see you there. And I've created workshops for events organisers and for production companies to help them start the journey towards accessibility and making it simple for them and help empowering them, really. My goal before I leave this industry is to make sure that accessibility is standardised at all events. So what do? We provide live captions. There's a nice picture of live captions. We provide other services as well. You can see the King's coronation there. It's been slightly cut off. The King was really, really serious about wanting the event to be for everybody, so we wanted to make it accessible. So you can see there we have sign language and we have live captions. They were on screens all over London. And a lot of the visitors from across the ponds, They found these really useful because English is their second language, and obviously it was in text, which makes it a lot easier to look at. AccessLoop is a tool to deliver live captions. We deliver open, closed, multi-language real-time captions and sign language to virtual or hybrid events on any platform. And we've built an API to make it really simple for all those platform owners. We really want them to stop saying, well, we've got AI captions. Just so you know, AI captions are not accessible for people who look and rely on them and need them to engage. And if you want reputational damage, then you shouldn't be using AI captioning, because my 2 examples on events I've worked on, Aviva was using AI captions and evil came up every time Aviva was mentioned. And the other one was a massive mobile phone launch in South Korea. And the name of the product was Reno, R-E-N-O. It came out as Renault for the whole way through. So they spent something like £1 million on this launch and ended up with that spelt wrong worldwide on their captioning. So it's not there yet. So who are the audiences? Who are we talking about here? 16 million disabled people live in the UK. That's 1 in 4 people. 23% of working age adults are disabled. 6.3 million, or 10% of the UK population, have dyslexia. Okay, that's trouble understanding writing, reading stuff. There's just an awful lot to that. Concentration levels. 1 in 6 adults has the reading level of an 11-year-old. So when you're writing your slides, your articles, you need to be thinking about this and making things simpler. Around 1.5 million people have a learning disability. 15% of the population is neurodivergent. That's probably 40% if we're really serious about this and if we start counting properly. 2 million people are living with sight loss. 12 million people have hearing loss in the UK. Of that, only 50,000 of them are using sign language. We get an awful lot of event organisers coming to us going, we need BSL, we want to be accessible. And I say, hang on a minute. You want to be accessible, let's sit down. And I talk through this. And sign language interpreters are incredibly scarce. And they will not come to an event that does not have a deaf person who uses sign language at it, because their services are so in demand. They don't want to stand on a stage as entertainment when their services could be somewhere else. So if you come to me, I will talk you through that and I'll offer you something else that will be really useful to make it accessible. So 18% of the population use closed captions every day. That's from Ofcom. Netflix figures are 63%. They're the people every day. So my kids are all teenagers, don't do anything without subtitles. They scroll past. So think about your video content. Think about all your lovely content. If it doesn't have captions on it, it's probably going to be inaccessible to anyone watching on a train, anybody with any kind of hearing loss, people, global audiences, neurodivergent people, they're gone. So your lovely videos that you've created and spent all that time and effort on, missing out in huge audiences. So I always find that incredibly powerful. The business case. So there's an organisation called the Valuable 500. And the top 500 companies, they were looking at FTSE companies, have committed to putting disability as part of their strategy and their people at board level. The Valuable 500 is now kicking some of those businesses out because it was a bit of a craze that everyone was signing up. HSBC are there, Barclays are there, Unilever on it, all the big companies. But they're not doing anything. And if you want to be part of the Valuable 500, you have to be doing something. So the other thing is the law. So there's something called the Disability Discrimination Act. Interestingly, an event holder decided to take that on last year. So Little Mix, their promoter, in the London Excel Centre, or the London, I can't remember it, my menopause is kicking in. So basically they were requested to have sign language for some parents who were taking their deaf children, but the parents were deaf as well. And they wanted a sign language interpreter, so that as sign language was their first language, they wanted to enjoy it in their first language. As part of the Act, you have to make a reasonable adjustment. And that seems to me a reasonable adjustment, but to the promoter it wasn't. They dug their heels in. It went all the way up to the High Court. The amount of money they spent on it, they could have sign language at every conference and captions. and they lost, and they were fined, and they were censured as well. So after that, there was a massive amount of people going, can we have sign language? So again, it's a constant education piece about accessibility. So accessibility benefits everyone. Every time you do something for somebody around access, somebody else benefits. So if you have a quiet room, for those people who are neurodivergent who might need some space, you'll find everyone in there. If you have clutter-free spaces, it's safer for everyone. If you have ramps going into your building, I've seen loads of people with cases today. It makes your life so much easier, and the automatic doors. Our text messaging, developed by 2 deaf people who did not want to miss out on the iPhone and did not want to miss out on any phones. So they brought this to the phone company. It was developed by 2 deaf individuals. Everything you do makes it better for everyone else. So I get a lot of people coming to me, 2 people requested it. And then I sit down and talk them through the audiences for live captioning, which is people who are deaf and hard of hearing, 11 million of them, but also people with English as a second language, people who are neurodivergent. We're starting to get lots of requests from neurodivergent people, so people with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, believe it or not. We get an awful lot more requests now from neurodivergence, which is great to see. Older people, anyone who is over the age of 50 is starting to lose their hearing. I'm always advocating AGMs. They should all have live captioning because the audience at AGMs are 60 plus. And every time we put them in, everyone's glued to the screens. And it's the group that come back and thank us at the back or message us to say, I found that really useful, but I never would have asked for it. Okay? People with English as a second language, they're never going to ask for it, but they will use it. Even neurodivergent, people who are neurodivergent, they don't ask for it, but they will use it. So you never waste money when you put in that accessibility. There is £250 billion in the market. It's called the Purple Pound, and it's spend on accessibility. It's the spend of disabled people, their families, their friends. I always think for people, you know, when someone with a disability comes to an event like this, and they see some of the things we're going to talk about in a minute, they feel welcome, they feel seen, they feel noticed, and they feel like you're on their side. They go home and tell their families, knowing that their family member doesn't feel like that very often, is now very warm towards you, warm towards your products, will tell their friends and family, recommend your products. It's like, I've seen it happen. Sainsbury's offer 2 hours in the evenings, quiet hours. John Lewis do it as well. And again, makes me feel very warm towards John Lewis. My son has ADHD. He's overwhelmed, taking him shopping. We have to run in and we have to run out. And those 2 hours where it's quiet is a much better place for us to be. It's your job. It's your job to include and engage everybody. This is part of your job. And really, it's just the right thing to do, right? It was great to hear you guys talking earlier about sustainability. It's the right thing to do for planet, for animals, for community, for everybody, right? It's just the right thing to do. These are the barriers, just to help you out. So people coming might not be able to hear the audio. You should look at captions, sign language, caption all your videos, even if you're not having live captions, have them on. People who can't see visuals, so all your content should be screen readable. So accessibility checker on Microsoft, fantastic, run it through that. Your registration, please make them simple. I understand everyone's trying to gather information, but for someone on a screen reader with your drop-down menus of 50 of them in a page, they're going to have to ask for help. That disempowers them. Can you fill this out for me? I can't get my screen reader to do this in less than 2 hours. So have a think about that. Have a fast-track registration. I don't know, something like that. Can't access the building. So ramps, it's not all about ramps. Think about maps. Is your venue accessible by transport? If it's not, find an accessible route. There's lots of websites that will help you. Publish it on the website. Now, as a disabled person who has mobility issues, I don't have to carry the load that day. You've done it for me. I love you. I now want to come to the event, and I'm feeling more confident because somebody's thought about me, and now I'm really hopeful that the rest of the event's somebody will have thought about me. So that's a really simple, free, easy thing to do and makes such a difference. Clutter-free spaces, that's good for everybody, health and safety, but also really good for people with maybe a stick, people who have a guide dog or a guide with them, people who are in a wheelchair, people with just kind of any kind of mobility issue. Clutter-free spaces are a massive, massive game changer. If the content's hard to follow, you know, we love filling our I've done it here. We love filling our presentations up, but try and encourage your speakers just to talk about the information rather than have it all on it can be overwhelming for people who are neurodivergent just to see all of that. It can be really quite overwhelming. So actually having live captions at the bottom enables them to focus on that and engage in that and leave aside the overwhelmingness. You know, duration and timings of the event. Don't milk it. It's lovely to have a 15-minute break in between. Everyone can relax, everyone can regroup, and keep the timings the same. Keep people to time. I'm going to have to hurry up. And don't keep changing your event, because that, again, is overwhelming. And if someone keeps seeing your event changing and the speakers change, they're just going to go, it's too much. I can't deal with this. The environment, temperature, lighting, location. Full-on lighting can be, again, overwhelming. Epilepsy, lots of different things. And how it affects the disability. People are pulling up carpets at the moment for sustainability, but actually carpets suck up sound. So people with hearing aids are really struggling at events now because we've got this vast sound tunnel that they're really struggling with. So try and balance sustainability, accessibility, all these things. You know, and if your venue is not accessible, don't book it. Just don't book it and tell them you're not booking it because it's not accessible. Then they'll go away. If enough people say that to them, they'll change it. I've seen people being carried in on wheelchairs and going up service lifts because someone wants a specific venue. That's not right, okay? That's just not right. That's humiliating for people. So overwhelming environments, events, things like this are overwhelming for me. They're overwhelming for a lot of other people with disability. So things you can do: quiet room, clear signage. This is this way, that is that way. I don't have to think about this. I just follow the signs. Quiet hour. I love these. Have a quiet hour at events, first thing in the morning. No noise, people keeping the sound down. You know, everybody acknowledging that this is a quiet hour. You'll have a load of people in on this one, and probably people without disabilities. But also, and think about barriers. You think you don't know anything about accessibility or disability. Just think about a barrier, and that's anything that prevents someone from accessing anything at your event. And we always do this exercise when we run workshops, and we give people sight, sound, environment, things. And we ask them, do you know anything? And they go, no. And by the end of the 15 minutes, they've nailed everything. So it's common sense. 90% of this is common sense. So my top tips are: get a budget, okay? And get a decent one. Talk to suppliers. Find out decide what you want to do, and get a decent budget. This is very much like, I heard you guys talking about suppliers and costs on this sustainability. You know, get the best quality you can, right? If you're doing this, do it properly. It's not as expensive as you think, but it does cost highly skilled interpreters, captioners, equipment you might need. And just get the budget. People always say to me, I have no budget for accessibility. And I say, you do, you just spent it somewhere else. So, you know, one less round of drinks, one less cup of teas, you've probably got the money to do quite a lot. Start the journey. I think you guys were saying this as well, Joe and Selena. You were saying the same thing. Just start, you know, make a quiet hour, do the travel instructions and say, this is how we're trying to be accessible. If you can think of other things we can do, let us know. You'll get a lot of people feeling confident because you've done a couple of things. I think these guys are listening, right? Be curious. Find out. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm afraid to say anything wrong. Don't worry about it. You know, it's fine. You can just say, sorry, I didn't know, and someone will go, that's okay. You know, get some training. Read up online. There's so much stuff. I've got some contacts after this. Bring in a consultant. We do some training. We do training courses. Talk to disabled people, but also talk to suppliers. Sometimes you do find, so I have a deaf friend who extols the virtues of specific things that suit him. I know as a supplier, that's not going to suit everybody. So the supplier can give you the overview and the best bang for your buck, but the deaf person gives you the lived experience, and that's really important. What you're interested in is what's it like for them. So it's important to talk to everybody. Develop relationships with good suppliers. Quality is really important. A lot of people say, yeah, we're going to be accessible. We're putting up AI captions. And I'm, okay, you're not really, but that's not because they're doing it on purpose. They don't know. So we sit down, we have a chat, and I'll advise them where AI captions are appropriate and where they're not. Commit to accessibility as a long term. This is not another fad, okay? This has always been, okay? These people are already at your event, People with disabilities are already at your event. You've seen the figures. They're already here. They're just not getting the value for money everyone else is. And that's on you, And I want to be challenging, but it is on us, right? We're organizing the events and we're not thinking about them. And it's not a fad. I've seen an awful lot of marketing people talking about accessibility like it's the next big thing and how we sell tickets. It's not. It's about people. It's about fundamental change in how we treat people at events and what we provide for them. Quote for accessibility at every event. If you're an event organizer, bring it in. Maybe that's the thing that's going to set you apart and win you the job, because you might be at a bank that is just signed up for the Valuable 500. Accessibility is on their list. You've now quoted for it or described what you can provide, and it could be for you. But also, it's about spreading this around. If you quote for it every time, clients are seeing it, and then they're expecting it. So, and then shout about it. Let people know what you're doing. Absolutely let people know what you're doing, because you'll bring people to your event. Build it and they will come. So it's very much like that. One thing I would say to you as well, we get a lot of people saying, well, we asked, did anyone want anything? And I said, well, what did you do? And they said, well, we said, does anyone have an adjustment they need? I'm not going to tell you if I need an adjustment. That's a medical word. It's probably a work thing I'm going to. And you've asked me to disclose something that I might not have disclosed at work. So think about how you word things. We are providing live captioning. We are providing a quiet space. We are providing an accessible route to help to make this event more inclusive. Is there anything else you might need that we could provide in order to help you engage and feel included? That's exactly the same thing, but I would respond to that, and people will respond to that. But you have to show them what you're already doing so that they can trust you. We had a conversation about this, and you were saying, Al, you were saying, well, we can't get people to tell us they're vegetarians. And I was like, well, why should disabled people tell you? You've done nothing to earn their trust, have you? You've been running events for years, ignoring them, and now you want to tell them about that. You want them to tell you about their medical problems that they may not have even told people at work. So just think about how you're asking and what you're asking someone to disclose about themselves. It's an intimate thing, and it makes them vulnerable because they might tell you and you might not do anything about it, and that's pretty hard. So take some of the load, is what I'm trying to say, from disabled people. Stop looking to them to tell you. Start getting ahead of it. So the useful contacts are me, and I can help you with captions, technical delivery. I've also developed a series of workshops. So if you want to start your journey as a company, we can come in and do a day for you. We've been into the BBC, Lloyds Bank. We've been to a couple of the big production companies as well. Business Disability Forum, if you're an organisation that wants more disabled people to work with you, they're fantastic. The Valuable 500 is for businesses, so maybe some of your clients want to join something. Attitude is everything. They're fantastic. And they have a charter that you can get on board with as well. They do mostly big events, big festivals, it's mostly music, but they have lots of useful stuff on there and to start your journey. I will put the link in for this, I forgot. Deaf and disabled people in television. This is cameramen, soundmen, this is talent, actors, actresses, speakers. So, I'd like to be not speaking here. I'd like to see a disabled person speaking instead of me. But unfortunately, I have this long 30-year history with this. But, that's a great organisation. And actually, broadcast are doing huge things. We're seeing more disabled people on television, aren't we? The Malteser ads started it all. But we're seeing big companies. Apple, from the word go, accessibility was included in the iPhone. Every other phone has it now. We're starting to see a real move, which is fantastic. This is another TV access project, which is another broadcast one, but useful for events too, and attendable. They're a specialist events organisation that organises accessible events, and they will walk you through it. And they also do consultancy, but you could have them alongside you, helping you, and they're fantastic. So that's it. Whistle-stop tour of my 30 years experience in accessibility. Boom.
Well done. Thanks so much, Orla. That was brilliant. Thank you. I hope you really enjoyed that. Well, enjoyed it. I hope you got so much out of that. We don't have a huge amount of time, but this is really important. So if you have any questions or needs or anything like that, yeah.
Hello, I have two if that's okay. So one is, what have you seen at this event that could be improved from an accessibility point of view?
Okay, I haven't had a lot of time at this event. I think a map would have been really useful, and an accessible map, because the way my maps took me was very inaccessible. There were stairs, there was iron fences in front of me and all sorts. So somebody taking the time to do that. I think the staff are fantastic, but I think your front of house staff, just giving them a little bit of a training. If someone who's deaf and a sign language user comes up, what are you going to do? Not panic. There's lots of things you can do. You can write things down. You can gesture. You can do things like that. I think there could be clutter-free spaces in there, and I also think a quiet hour would have been really nice too for lots of people. But yeah, I think that would work too.
Amazing. And another one, if that's all right. So you mentioned that for people that not many people know sign language.
Yes.
So other than live captioning, what other things can you do to bridge that gap for people that...
There are people who use lip speaking. There are people who use all sorts of different ways. What I think is really useful is you can provide your slides in front. So if someone has that so they can familiarize themselves with the content. So some sign language users can use captions, but English is not their first language. So having the slides in front of them allows them to note when things change, the subject changes, when people are moving on, and that helps you stay engaged. So having information up front. A hearing loop is useful if you have a hearing aid that works with a hearing loop, but I know a lot of production companies lean on the hearing loop as doing something, but it's not very powerful, so and it doesn't work for everybody. So it's just things like clear signage, quiet spaces, again for people with hearing aids, because it gets really noisy, and that background noise is the worst. Watch the music levels as well. Don't have conversation fighting with music, keep it down. So they're the other things that you can do.
Thanks, Orla. Does anyone else have any questions as well? Just a second, sir. Thanks, man.
Thank you for that. I just wondering, is there a point when you think that we can almost take it too far, and then people start thinking that it's been done to fulfill a quota, and so people feel like they're doing the right thing rather than doing it because they actually care about the reasoning that they're doing it, if you see what I mean?
I do. I'd be delighted if we got to that. I'd be thrilled. I think we've made it. We're like everything else now. I think what's useful about accessibility is whatever you do is useful for everyone. So it's not like you're doing a specific... You will always get people go, I found the captions quite distracting. And you go, well, not to worry, you're all right. So I think they're useful for everyone. So I don't think we'll get to that point. I think most people love it. You know, they really enjoy all of the adjustments and don't even realize they're for accessibility. I'd like them to know they're for accessibility and they're benefiting from that. But no, I would hope we'd never get to that. And I think if we get to that, we're doing really, really, really well. What I loved, just on that point, I love it when deaf people complain. I love it because that means they're feeling comfortable, they're feeling looked after, and they feel like they have the right to complain. I love it. They'll say, the captions are too small, Orla. Right, next time they're going to be bigger. And I feel so happy because so few areas in life do they get to complain. And I know if they're complaining, then they're feeling comfortable and looked after. So invite the complaints. If you get complaints, you're on the right road.
Great question, great answer.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Hiya, I'm a venue in the Midlands, and I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation, because as a venue it's important for me to take this feedback. Part of our ESG, corporate responsibility, social responsibility, and the gentleman, sorry I don't know his name, I don't want to be felt like that, because I want to deliver events and accommodate corporates in this room to say, actually, what are your needs around that, and let me let me clarify a solution for you. Let me know what we have got.
Yeah.
And if we need to change or adapt, then we can do that, because actually this is just as much a learning curve for everybody in the industry, but from a delivery of a venue. So I think the challenge for me is I'm one venue site in here. There's a whole load of venues in the UK, and I'm not saying we all do it well, but I don't think we all do it well consistently. And I think this is the message that we need to relay back, because actually each person should feel inclusive, and that's the main thing. It doesn't matter who you are, whatever you are, that doesn't matter. It should be, when you're at an event or you've been invited, etc., you should have the resources available. And if not, that organiser should be fully aware of that. And that's the transparency that we have. So I'm hoping to connect with you after this and see where we go. But I think venues need to get involved a bit more.
I agree. And I think if you're a venue that is accessible, shout about it. Tell everyone. Use it as marketing, right? And those people who are looking for accessible events will be coming to you. And those people who are not getting those events will then think, actually, we're not accessible. We need to do something about it. So, yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's definitely something everyone should be shouting about. And I don't think any of you should book a venue if it's not accessible. That's what you can do. Even if you can do nothing else, say no to a venue if they're not accessible and let them know. And that will make a massive difference. It will bring the change that you're talking about.
Orla, thank you, and a great point. Thanks so much. That's us. The end. I hope you've got something out of it. So lots of ideas and tips, or one big idea, or something like that. I hope you have. Orla, what a great end to the conference. Positive and negative at the same time, and full of opportunity. And yes, clap.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.